The front door was locked, but the light in the kitchen was on. That's what stopped me. Not the silence in the hallway. Not the fact that I hadn't lived here in months. But the light, and the coffee mug sitting perfectly on the counter. Still steaming. I didn't knock. I didn't call out her name. I just stood there, looking through the frosted glass, heart pounding like I was the stranger, like I was the intruder. She came back. That was the only thought in my head. Over and over again. She came back. I should have walked away. I should have turned around and gone back to the parking lot, back to the life I'd barely managed to glue together. But I didn't. I stood there, feet nailed to the porch, staring at a shadow that passed behind the curtain like a ghost that still remembered how to make coffee. And then the door opened. She didn't scream. She didn't even look surprised. Like she had been waiting for me. Like I was late. I thought you changed the locks. I muttered, my voice half broken. I didn't, she said. Calm. Flat. As if this was just another Tuesday morning. I wasn't ready to see her again. Not like this. Not with her standing in our kitchen like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't shattered me. Like she hadn't walked out of this very house 6 months ago and left me with nothing but a cracked picture frame and a gas bill in her name. Back then, she didn't cry. She didn't explain. She just packed a duffel bag and left a 4-line note on the fridge. It's over. Please don't contact me. This was my decision. I'm sorry. No name. No signature. Just the note. And silence. I never got closure. I never even got answers. The woman I built my world around had disappeared like I was a bad decision she was correcting. And now here she was, like she never left. Wearing the same robe she used to wear on cold mornings. No makeup. Hair in that lazy bun she used to do when she wasn't trying. The one I always said made her look the most beautiful. Why are you here? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Just took a sip from the coffee like this was a scene we'd rehearsed. I ended it, she said softly, not meeting my eyes. It took me a second, maybe more. You ended it? I repeated. She nodded, like I was supposed to clap. Like that fixed anything. Do you expect me to say thank you? She flinched. I made a mistake, she whispered. I thought I knew what I wanted, and I didn't. He wasn't. He wasn't who I thought he was. I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny, but because that sentence, that exact sentence, I had said that to my reflection every night for months. She stepped closer, cautiously, like I was made of glass. Please, just let me explain. No, 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 no. She didn't get to walk into my house like this. She didn't get to come back with her coffee and her calm voice and expect me to just forget everything she did. But the truth? I didn't tell her to leave. Not yet. Because part of me, the broken, stupid, lonely part, wanted to hear what she had to say. And that part? It was louder than my pride. She stood there like she belonged. That was the part one couldn't get past. She had the nerve to walk barefoot across my kitchen tiles like she hadn't turned her back on everything we'd built. Like she hadn't erased me from her life and made me feel like a placeholder, a warm body to pass time with until someone more exciting came along. She poured a second cup of coffee. My mug. The blue one with the chipped rim from the road trip to Colorado. The one she made fun of and then secretly started using more than I did. She slid it across the counter toward me, just like she used to, and said, I didn't know if you'd be here. I was hoping. Hoping? What was she hoping for? That I'd be waiting like a backup plan she forgot to delete. I didn't touch the cup. She watched me with eyes that used to be my home. I used to be able to read every flicker in them. But now, they were locked vaults, with months of secrets behind them. I know you probably hate me, she began, her voice trembling just enough to sound real. And I deserve that. But I need to talk to you. I haven't talked to anyone who actually knows me in months. You made sure of that, I said, sharper than I expected. You cut me off, blocked my number, vanished like I was some mistake you didn't want to explain. She looked down. I was ashamed. Of what? I asked. Of me? Or of what you did? Her lips parted, but she didn't answer. There was a long silence between us, and for a moment I thought she'd finally walk out again. Instead, she walked over to the couch, our couch, and sat exactly where she always used to, knees tucked under, like this was just another morning after an argument. Like we were going to play Let's Pretend again. I thought he was different, she said quietly. I know that sounds like a cheap excuse, but when I left, I really thought I was chasing something better, something I deserved. He was charming and confident, and he made me feel important. I interrupted. Special? Alive? She winced. Seen. That word again. Seen. As if I had spent 12 years staring through her like she was fog on glass. As if the way I memorized her laugh, or brought her snacks at 2 a.m. during deadlines, or rubbed her shoulders after every family dinner disaster. That didn't count. She took a breath, shakier now. He wasn't who I thought he was. He said all the right things until I actually needed him. Until things got messy. I moved in with him, and within a week, I realized I'd made a mistake. So you ran, I said, finally sitting down. Not beside her, on the opposite chair, arms crossed, knees locked. You blew everything up, found out the grass wasn't greener, and now what? You want this life back? No, she said, surprising me. I don't want things to go back to how they were. That wouldn't be fair to you. I blinked. Then why are you here? She hesitated. Looked toward the window like she was searching for the right answer outside. I thought, maybe you'd let me say goodbye the right way. Or, maybe you'd tell me the things you never got to say. That almost broke me. Because the truth? I had so many things I wanted to say. So many nights I screamed into pillows, or typed messages I deleted, or stared at her old scarf still hanging in my closet and begged the universe for one last conversation. But now that I had it, now that she was here, I didn't want closure. I wanted her to suffer like I did. I wanted her to feel the cold side of the bed. I wanted her to open a cabinet and accidentally find a memory that stung. I wanted her to wonder why her favorite song suddenly felt like a funeral. And just as I was about to tell her that, she said something that stopped my heartbeat. He's gone. I didn't understand. What do you mean gone? She looked at me with a look I'd never seen before. Not guilt. Not sadness. Fear. And then she said 5 words I'll never forget. He said he'd ruin you. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. The moment those words left her mouth, the room felt smaller. Like the walls were listening. Like the air had weight. I stared at her, searching for any sign this was a manipulation trick, another carefully delivered performance to lure me into forgiveness. But her eyes, they weren't faking it. Not this time. She looked genuinely rattled. He said he'd ruin you, she repeated, quieter now, like if she said it any louder, it might come true faster. I stood up slowly, every part of me aching with tension. What exactly did he say? Word for word. She swallowed hard, and I saw her hands trembling as they gripped the hem of her robe. He told me, if I ever tried to come back to you, if I ever reached out, he'd make sure you lost everything. He said he knew how to make people disappear in plain sight. That he had friends. Contacts. That he'd done it before. I let out a bitter laugh I couldn't control. So what, he's a mobster now? A ghost with connections? She looked at me, dead serious. I thought he was bluffing, too. But then I started noticing things. My old friend Kelsey got fired after I stayed at her place. Her fiancé got audited. My own email accounts? Locked. Bank froze my card. My parents got a message about a pending investigation into me. All this happened after I tried to cut contact with him. I stepped back, unsure whether to feel scared or insulted. So you're telling me you left this guy, and instead of just breaking up like a normal adult, he launched a personal revenge campaign? She nodded. He told me no one walks away from him without consequences. I sat down again, not because I believed her fully, but because a tiny, inconvenient part of me remembered something. A missed call from a blocked number 2 weeks ago. A weird email I got at work that vanished before I could open it. The sudden rejection of my loan application with no explanation, even though my credit was fine. I'd brushed it all off as bad luck. Just a cluster of frustrating coincidences. But now, with her sitting here, looking like a ghost of herself, telling me this with such urgency, I wasn't so sure. I thought if I left quietly, he'd let you go, she said, staring down at her hands. That's why I blocked you. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I thought if he saw me cut ties with you completely, he'd lose interest. I couldn't stop shaking my head. And what? 6 months later you just show up here because that didn't work? Her voice cracked. Because he's still watching me. Because I think he's about to do something worse. And because you don't deserve to be punished for something I did. I stood up again and walked toward the window, heart hammering. Outside, the street was empty. Just the usual flickering streetlight and the hum of someone's TV upstairs. But it felt different now. Like there was a pair of eyes behind every shadow. Like I was already being followed and just didn't know it. How did you even meet him? I asked without turning around. You told me he was some guy from work. Was that even true? She paused. I could hear her breathing shift. No. I met him through someone else. Not work. I lied. Of course she did. I turned to face her, and my voice came out more bitter than I intended. And now you want me to believe you're here to protect me? After vanishing. After sleeping with someone you barely knew. After letting him dig into my life without a single warning? She looked up, tears now pooling in her eyes. No, I don't want you to believe anything. I know I don't deserve that. But I came back because I couldn't carry it anymore. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't care. He's dangerous, Dorian. And I was stupid enough to think I could control him. I've been watching over my shoulder for months. And if I'm being honest, I'm terrified. I wanted to scream, throw something, tell her to get out. But all I could do was collapse back into the chair, gripping the sides like I might fall through the floor. I never imagined my marriage ending in betrayal. But I definitely didn't imagine it turning into some kind of psychological thriller. And then, just as the room fell into another tense silence, my phone buzzed. One notification. Unknown number. No name. Just a single sentence. You should have stayed gone. I stared at the message like it might rewrite itself if I looked long enough. You should have stayed gone. That was it. No punctuation. No name. Just the kind of text that settles into your spine and doesn't leave. I didn't want to show it to her. Her, the woman who detonated my life and came crawling back in the middle of it like she was doing me a favor, but I did. Because as much as I hated it, I needed to know if she recognized it. The moment she saw the screen, her face went pale. Her hands, already trembling, clenched tighter around the sleeve of her robe. That's him, she whispered. That's exactly how he talks. He always sends things without punctuation. Like everything's a command. I locked the phone and set it on the table between us like it was a live explosive. And how would he know I'm here? Or that you're here? She shook her head quickly, almost frantic. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I used a burner app to message my rideshare. I haven't posted anything. I even turned off location services. I've been paranoid for months. Well, clearly not paranoid enough, I snapped. Because he found us. My voice came out sharper than I expected, and she flinched like she'd been slapped. For a split second, guilt twisted in my chest. But then I remembered the months of silence. The unanswered questions. The nights I sat in this same apartment staring at the ceiling, wondering how I became disposable. She looked up again, face soaked in shame and fear. He used to talk about you. I froze. What? He'd ask questions. About your job. Your routines. He thought it was funny that you worked in records management, said you were invisible by design. He once said, guys like him never see it coming. They're used to being forgotten. She swallowed hard. At the time, I didn't realize what he meant. My blood ran cold. That wasn't just something a bitter ex said. That was the kind of sentence someone plans around. It made me think of every ignored email at work, every unreturned call from clients that used to respect me. I thought I was in a slump. I thought my confidence had cracked because of the breakup. But what if someone had been slowly sabotaging me this whole time? I stood up and paced the room, one hand pulling through my hair, the other still clenching into a fist. You let this guy into our life, and now he's behind the curtain pulling strings like we're characters in some twisted game. I didn't know he was like this, she said quickly. At first, he was charming. He talked about growth, about healing, about how he'd been hurt too. I thought. Yeah. I interrupted, turning sharply toward her. You thought, but you never stopped to think about me. About what it would do to the person you left behind. And now you expect me to trust you, while some psychopath plays shadow puppets with my life. She didn't say anything, just sat there, curled up like a child who knew the storm was her fault. I wanted her gone. But more than that, I wanted answers. I needed to know how deep this thing went. So I did something stupid. I picked up my phone again and texted back. Who is this? We both stared at the screen, waiting. I could feel her eyes on me, silently pleading, hoping I'd just let it go. But I couldn't. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. This was about someone dismantling my life from the shadows. A new reply popped up in less than 10 seconds. You'll know soon enough. I looked up at her. What does that mean? What is he planning? She opened her mouth, closed it. Then, after a pause so long I thought she might lie again, she whispered. He had folders. On people. Pictures. Social media posts. Notes. He told me once, leverage is power. I laughed it off, like he was being dramatic. But now, it didn't feel dramatic at all. It felt like we were already being watched. Right then, I heard it. A click. From the hallway. like the tail end of a camera shutter, or maybe a door gently closing. I froze mid-breath. She noticed it too. Her eyes locked on mine, wide and glassy. I moved slowly toward the peephole, hands shaking, heart thumping so loud it drowned out everything else. The hallway was empty, but on the doormat was a flash drive. I stared at the thing like it might explode. It wasn't even wrapped. No envelope, no note, nothing. Just a black flash drive sitting in the middle of the welcome mat like someone had gently placed it there minutes ago, maybe even seconds before I opened the door. I didn't hear footsteps. No door closing. No elevator ding. Just that sound, the one I wasn't even sure was real. The faint click that drew me to the peephole in the first place. I reached down, picked it up, and immediately regretted it. It was warm. Not hot, but like it had been held tightly, like whoever left it had been gripping it in their palm. My pulse spiked. I closed the door quietly, locked the deadbolt, then slid the chain into place for the first time in months. She hadn't moved, still sitting on the couch, hugging her knees to her chest like she was trying to disappear into herself. "Do you think it's from him?" I asked. She looked up. Her face was pale, eyes wide and shining. "It has to be. No one else would do this." I sat down at my desk, hands shaking as I plugged the drive into my laptop. A small window popped up immediately. No password, no encryption. Just one folder. And the folder had my name on it. Not just Dorian. It was my full legal name. First, middle, last. Capitalized properly. Like it had been formatted for a personnel file. That was my first chill. My second came when I opened the folder. Inside were subfolders, labeled by year. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. This wasn't new. This had history. I opened the most recent one first. Inside were screenshots of my social media activity. Photos of me at work. Pictures of me inside this apartment. Some taken from angles that made no sense. Ones I never posted. One in particular made my stomach drop. It was of me sleeping. Alone. Head tilted on the arm of the couch. Taken from outside the window. How did he get these? I whispered, half to myself. She slowly stood and crept closer, eyes locked on the screen. When she saw the sleeping photo, her hands flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, that's from before I left. That's from when I told you I was working late." I clicked through the folder, hands numb. There were copies of old emails, some I didn't even remember sending. Private conversations. A blurry shot of my debit card resting on a countertop. One tab over a spreadsheet. Passwords. IP addresses. Things I never saved anywhere. But there they were. "He's been collecting data on me for years," I said in disbelief. And then, deeper in the folder, something else. An audio file. Just one. Titled, "For Him." I clicked play before I had time to second guess. His voice came through immediately. Calm. Smooth. Almost smug. "Hello, Dorian. I know you're listening. And before you think about calling the police or changing your locks, don't bother. I've already been where I need to be. I already have what I need. This isn't about hurting you. Not really. It's about control. And understanding. You see, I watched you long before she did. I watched the way you lived. The way you settled. The way you pretended things were fine. She wanted more. And you gave her less. So I gave her what she wanted. I gave her choice. What you do now, that's your choice. But I'm already ahead of you. I always am." The file ended. No background noise. No timestamp. Just the sound of him stepping over my boundaries like they never existed. I sat frozen. My heart felt like it had stopped. My skin itched with paranoia. And my wife, my ex, I guess, was standing behind me, speechless. "Do you get it now?" she finally whispered. "He doesn't want to move on. He wants to own people. And when I told him I was coming back here, I think he saw that as betrayal." I looked at her, slowly realizing what this meant. "He's not just watching me anymore," I said. "He's watching us." And right on cue, another notification hit my phone. This one with a photo. It was us, right now, taken through the window, from across the street. And underneath it, a message. "Tell her she has 5 minutes to leave, or I come inside." I didn't show her the message right away. I just locked the phone, stood up slowly, and walked over to the window. My hands were clammy, and my breath fogged the glass as I leaned in. I scanned the street with that hollow kind of hope you get when you're looking for something you don't want to find. Maybe it was a bluff. Maybe the photo was old. Maybe it wasn't real. But then I saw it. Across the street, parked halfway behind a crooked trash bin, was a black SUV. Idling. Headlights off. No plates on the front. The windshield reflected the street lamp too perfectly for me to see who was inside. But I knew. I could feel it. I turned back toward her. Her lips were pale. Her arms wrapped tight around her body like she was bracing for impact. She looked at me like a kid who'd just confessed something awful and was waiting for the punishment. He gave us 5 minutes, I said flatly, to decide. Either you walk out, or he walks in. She took a slow step back. What? He's here? I nodded. Across the street. Cars running. She ran to the window, peeked out just enough to see. And when she did, she recoiled like she'd touched a burner. No, 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 he can't be here. This wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't think he'd. Her voice cracked, and she collapsed onto the arm of the couch, shaking. I thought I could warn you, that I could explain, but I let him write to you. I gave him a target. I looked around the room. Everything suddenly felt breakable, unsafe. The locks, the walls, the windows, they were just suggestions. If this man had been in my home before, if he'd recorded me, photographed me, studied me, what was a lock going to stop? I grabbed my phone, scrolled back to the photo he sent. The image burned into my retinas. We were both in frame. He was watching. Right now? And still, some broken part of me asked the stupidest question. Do you still have feelings for him? She looked up, stunned. What? I mean it, I said. You let him into your life. You let him crawl around inside your head. You ran to him, lived with him. You trusted him over me. So before we decide what to do, I need to know, is there any part of you that still wants him? She stood up, voice trembling with rage and heartbreak. He broke me. I couldn't leave my apartment for weeks after I got away. I've been sleeping with lights on. I checked every doorknob twice. I deleted every account I had and still felt watched. And now he's here, because I made the mistake of loving him when I didn't know who he really was. So no, I don't love him. I hate him. But that doesn't mean he's going to let me go. We both froze at the same time. There was a sound. Faint. A soft tap, tap, tap. Not on the door. Not on the window. On the wall. The far side of the apartment. The bedroom wall that faced the alley. 3 taps. Measured. Then silence. I felt my throat tighten. That wall had no windows. No door. It faced a narrow concrete alley no one used unless they were throwing out trash. My stomach turned. He's not going to wait, I whispered. I grabbed the flash drive from the laptop, yanked it out, and stuffed it into my pocket. We're leaving. She didn't argue. I grabbed her coat, my keys, the folder of documents I kept in the side drawer, passport, ID, the cash envelope I hadn't touched in months, and we bolted for the hallway. I peeked through the peephole. The corridor was empty. No movement. But I still waited. Listened. When I opened the door, we slipped out fast, locking it behind us, and took the stairs. No elevators. I didn't trust being trapped in a box. We ran through the back entrance of the building. No SUV in sight. The alley was damp, but empty. We crossed through a gap in the fence, made it 2 blocks before I looked back. Still nothing. I unlocked my car and shoved the passenger door open for her. We got in, slammed the doors, and I locked them both. Then I did something I didn't expect. I broke down. My hands wouldn't stop shaking on the wheel. My head dropped forward. I let out this choked, pathetic sob I didn't even know was coming. I wasn't crying because of her, or because of him. I was crying because I had no idea where I was going, or what I'd just run from. She reached over, gently. Her hand rested on my shoulder like a stranger trying to offer comfort without permission. I didn't know who else to run to, she said. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't just a story of betrayal anymore. This was survival. This was someone using love as leverage and control as currency. And if we didn't do something soon, if we didn't flip the script, he was going to keep writing our ending. We didn't speak for the first hour. The drive out of the city felt like we were dragging pieces of a broken life behind us. I didn't have a destination. I just knew I needed to get away from every wall that might have been listening. Every streetlight that might have held a hidden camera. Every glance from a stranger that might not have been a stranger at all. She watched me while I drove, but said nothing. I could feel her guilt clinging to the air between us. The woman who once told me I was safe now sat beside me like I was her only lifeline left. We ended up at a gas station just outside of town. Some forgotten exit surrounded by overgrown weeds and a flickering sign that hadn't been updated since gas was $2. I parked behind the building, out of view from the main road. My fingers were stiff on the steering wheel. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been gripping it until I tried to let go. She handed me a bottle of water and whispered, "We can't run forever." It wasn't an apology. It was a statement of fact. A tired one. But she was right. Running was never going to be enough. Not with someone like him. He didn't want her back. He didn't want closure. He didn't want anything normal. He wanted control. Ownership. He wanted to make sure that even after she left him, even after she tried to make it right, she never felt free again. And by association, I'd become part of the story. He wasn't just after her anymore. He was after the version of her that chose me over him. "We need to hit back," I said quietly. Not violently, but publicly. She looked at me like she wasn't sure whether to laugh or panic. "You want to fight him?" "I want to expose him." She swallowed. "He covers his tracks. He used fake names, burner accounts, even disposable phones. And he's careful. He knows how to make it all look like coincidence." I nodded. But he made a mistake. One big one. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the flash drive. "He gave me this." She tilted her head. "So, he gave it to me," I said, "which means it's connected to me. If anything happens to us, if we vanish or crash or suddenly both drown in a bathtub, someone will find this. And everything in it links back to him. All his surveillance, his tracking, his threats. He left a breadcrumb trail." Her eyes lit up with something I hadn't seen in her for a long time. Hope. "But we need to move smart," I said. "If he knows we're building a case, he'll go nuclear. But if he thinks we're just scared, just scattered, he might keep feeding us information." "We become bait," she whispered. I nodded. "Exactly. We found an old motel 20 miles down the highway. No cameras. No card check-in. Just a key on a plastic tag and a manager who didn't ask questions." I spent the evening copying everything from the flash drive to 3 separate encrypted files, uploaded across cloud services under fake names I created years ago during my paranoid IT phase. She watched from the bed while I worked. "You were always better at planning than me," she said. I didn't respond. I didn't need compliments. Not from her. Not now. I was still angry. Still heartbroken. Still lost in the storm of everything she'd done. But something bigger had taken over. This wasn't about forgiveness. It was about finishing a story that someone else tried to hijack. That night, just after 3 a.m., she shook me awake. Her hands were ice cold. Her face, terrified. "There's someone at the front desk," she whispered. I heard the manager on the phone. He said our room number. I jumped out of bed, heart hammering. I killed the lights and peeked through the curtain. A silver sedan was parked in front of the office. Engine still running. And a man was talking to the manager through the glass. I couldn't see his face, but I didn't have to. I recognized his stance, his hands in his coat pockets, his head slightly tilted, his shoulders relaxed, too relaxed. It was him. And in his hand, a photo. He was showing it to the manager. A photo of me. The second I saw the manager point toward our room, I knew we had seconds. I didn't wait for her to ask what to do. I grabbed her wrist, yanked open the back door of the motel room, and we sprinted into the alley behind the building. The freezing air slapped me awake like a bucket of ice water, but adrenaline overruled everything. We didn't run far, just enough to crouch behind the dumpster by the utility shed. I heard the sedan door open. Quiet footsteps. Not rushed. Not angry. Confident. He thought he was already inside the last chapter. He was wrong. Back inside the room, the laptop was still open, the flash drive still connected, and the small webcam tucked into the curtain rod, the one I'd set up the moment we checked in, was recording everything. He stepped inside like it was his house, looked around, sat on the edge of the bed. He pulled out a phone, dialed, put it to his ear. Then I heard my own ringtone echo softly in the alley. The spare phone I kept in my jacket, now buzzing quietly in my pocket. He was calling me. I let it ring. He left a message. "You can keep hiding, Dorian. But the longer this drags out, the worse it ends. For both of you. I'm giving you one more out. Come back. Bring her with you. Or I shut this whole thing down. Permanently." He stood, looked straight at the laptop camera. Like he knew. Like he wanted it recorded. Then he walked out. 30 seconds later, he was gone. But that one message, combined with the footage of him breaking into our motel room, phone logs, the photos, the audio file on the flash drive, was finally enough. And more importantly, this time we didn't run. We drove straight to the state police. She gave a statement. I handed over the drive, the screenshots, the files I'd backed up. We sat in a windowless office for 6 hours. They took everything seriously. The stalking, the digital surveillance, the photos of me sleeping, the illegal entry, the threats, all of it. Turns out, this wasn't his first time. 3 different complaints from other victims, 2 women, 1 man, had been filed under different aliases matching his pattern. All dismissed due to lack of physical evidence. We just changed that. It took 2 days for them to track him down. And when they arrested him, they found a second drive in his car. Not just photos of us, but dozens of folders. Names, addresses, notes. He hadn't just been stalking her. He'd been building a portfolio of control for years. The trial's still months away, but his bail was denied. A restraining order was filed. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't afraid to breathe. Now, I live in a smaller place. Quiet neighborhood. I keep fewer things. Fewer distractions. Just a bike, a couple plants, a desk by the window, and a cat I rescued named Solo. Because yeah, it felt fitting. As for her, she moved to a new city. We still talk sometimes. The conversations are cautious, soft, like 2 people recovering from different versions of the same fire. She apologized again, months later, really apologized. Not to win me back, but to own her damage. That meant something. But no, we're not together. We're not rebuilding what broke. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. But I'm okay with that. Because here's the thing no one tells you about being betrayed. It breaks you in oddly specific ways. Ways that force you to find new pieces of yourself that never would have existed otherwise. And those pieces? They're mine now. He tried to control my life like it was a script. She thought she could walk back into the story she'd torn up. But I rewrote it. Quietly. On my terms.